we are talking about barriers to growth. I'm going to be coming at it from a marketing angle. Jim's going to be coming at it more from a people, sales, consultancy sort of angle. So I'm trying to get the level of background knowledge so I pitch the talk right, because we're a B2B marketing agency. We help clients grow their pipeline. And basically what's happened over the last couple of years is everything that we used to do historically from a digital marketing point of view started stopping working. It stopped working. It became less effective. And I'm going to explain why it became less effective and then what to do about it. So those of you from a marketing background may be familiar with some of these challenges. So some of the challenges we saw, and this started happening about 2022, 2023, 2024. Organic traffic, which is just the traffic coming through to your website from Google, across the board started diving. That was one thing that happened as a barrier to growth. Second thing that started happening is people's content marketing efforts stopped working. They became less effective. The third thing that happened is if you were doing advertising, online advertising, all of the costs became more expensive. And if you take that all together, what we were seeing across the board is marketing teams, their pipelines were drying up, it became harder to acquire new customers, and there's been a raft of restructures where marketing directors lost their jobs, new CMOs came in. The average tenure for a marketing director now is the shortest it's ever been. It's only a couple of years at the moment, because it's getting harder and harder to get results. And I'm not going to go into all of this in too much detail, but just to put some numbers behind it. So organic traffic, which is the traffic coming to your website from Google, that dropped 60 to 70% on average across the board. The cost of acquiring a customer for a B2B company, it now costs £2 for every £1 of annual reoccurring revenue you get from a customer. So it takes 2 years to break even for most B2B businesses, because the costs have gotten so high of winning new customers. And then your ability to measure all of this has just gotten worse and worse and worse. So marketing reporting and marketing attribution has got worse because of privacy changes online. You now have to opt in to cookies, so you can't track people. So we don't know how to measure marketing, and it's becoming less effective overall. And this has happened across the board. And this technological change is one of the main drivers. It's not the only driver, but it's one of the main drivers. And I'd go as far to say we're entering into a new era when it comes to marketing, especially online marketing, and it's driven by tech. So LLMs, if there's quite a lot of B2B companies here, there's education, there's professional services. In the professional services space, as example, over 90% of your buyers are now using LLMs as part of their discovery process. They're not necessarily coming to your website. Why do they need to come to the website? I can sit there on Perplexity, Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini. I'm sure people are using these tools quite frequently at this point. And I can get highly personalized, highly contextual answers to all of my problems without ever visiting your website, actually live in the LLM.
Sorry, I'm going to pick one in the group, but what does LLM stand?
Large language model.
Right, okay.
So that's like ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude. And what we're seeing more and more, just for our own business, is we don't see people as much saying, I found you in Google, it's I found you in ChatGPT or Claude. And the way it's finding us has changed, and we're going to go into this in a moment, but people will upload all of the information about their company, all of their problems. Here's my P&L, which has been on the decline. Here are my target customer lists. Here are the challenges that I'm having in marketing. They'll have conversations with it over many, many months. And then they will say, who's best placed to solve my exact problem? And it's got all of that contextual history. It's got all of that personalization. And then maybe it goes, you know what, PDW is best placed to solve that for you. And it'll recommend PDW in at that point. Way more relevant to you. And it's a totally different technology to search engines. And that is the kind of point that I'm going to be making throughout today. And I am going to get even more technical on all of this. So I'll try to make it accessible. Because what's actually happened is that the LLMs, the ChatGPTs, the Geminis, the Claudes, have broken the informational relationship that companies used to have with their customers. So historically, what would have happened was, we as a provider of services have information that our users and audience don't have. So we'll provide a technical spec, we'll provide a white paper, we'll gate that content up, and then you have to submit your email address to get that content, because you've got information that I don't have. That's not the case anymore. Why would I give you an email address to get some information from you when I've got access to a tool that's read the entire internet, that's read every single book, that's read every single YouTube video? So people aren't now submitting their email address. So content marketing is less effective. So essentially what happened was ChatGPT, Gemini, all of those came out. And that meant from a B2B buyer's perspective, they didn't need to read your content on your website anymore. They didn't need to download your white paper. They stopped doing it. They started asking ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude directly, which meant your content marketing underperformed. The traffic to your website started to drop. And then what everyone did and has been doing is they go, well, what's left that's working? Online advertising, paid search. Let me just throw all my money at online advertising. And they did that, and the costs have become incredibly expensive. And all of that collectively together has meant that people can't generate pipeline anymore. As a grand scheme, it still works, but that old playbook has become less effective. Now, before I keep going, is the whole room still with me on what I've just described? And if there's any marketers in the room or people who are adjacent to marketing and have marketing departments, does any of what I've described ring true about the drop in organic traffic, content marketing performing less? It's getting harder and harder to get the same pipeline. Okay, cool. So I'm going to go into what we see as the solution to some of this in a moment, and what we've seen that's working with clients. But I'm going to take a moment to just go into how LLMs work, how these AI systems work, and I'm going to do it in the simplest way I possibly can, so I'm going to gloss over a lot of detail here. But essentially how ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude work is they work in 3 steps. They read, they learn, and then they predict. So when they read, they go out and they've scoured the entire internet, they've read all of the books, they've listened to all of the podcasts, they've consumed all of YouTube, all of those different data points, including your website. So they've ingested all of that information as their training material. Now, one of the implications of this, by the way, is actually what you do live on your website is becoming less important for your visibility within LLMs. Because in the past, to rank within Google, what was on your website was the most important thing. That's now less important because actually the training material, the training corpus is so much broader across the entire web. So step 1 is it's learning. So it's read the whole of the web, it's read all of this books, it's consumed all of this content. It then goes through a process of learning. And when it learns, it tries to find the contextual relationship between words. It's trying to understand the pattern of language. And it does it through a process called vector embedding. You don't need to know too much about it, but it's looking at the relationship between words. And then what it finds is that words like king and queen tend to cluster together because they're relevant contextually. But words like orange and king don't often appear too much together. From all of this it's read, so it's understanding the pattern between words. And after understanding the pattern between words, it then begins to predict what word is next in the sentence. So, say for example, you've put, give me some ideas of what to do when visiting Santiago. It takes that prompt and then it asks itself, based on all the patterns of words that you've got, what's going to be the next word in that sentence? And then that new string, which includes the prompt plus that one word, it feeds that back into the language model and says, what's the next word and what's the next word? And it keeps doing that process. So because it's doing all of that, it's doing it based on the likelihood that each word is going to appear next. So because of that, you get a completely unique answer for each prompt you give. You could give the same prompt twice and get a completely different response. So that's totally different to how Google works. Google is giving you a deterministic set outcome. It comes across as more creative because of this, because it's doing it based on the probability of a word coming next. So I hope you're all still with me. I thought even though we're talking about growth, it's useful to understand this because I actually see all of this as it is the biggest technological revolution of our time, worth understanding how LLMs work, because they have implications of marketing. I'm not going to go into all of this in too much detail, but anyone who's worked in marketing before, the game was all about search engine optimization. That was a key part of it. Search engines worked by reading a page and seeing how relevant that page is for a query that somebody put into Google. It was matching a page to its relevancy. That's not how the LLMs work. The LLMs are looking for concepts and ideas that group together, just like how I described a moment ago. Right? And that's important because it actually impacts marketing strategy. And I'll talk to you about that in a second. So what are the implications about this? So I'm talking now top level strategic shift in marketing for how you grow your company, right? Is back back in the day, it makes me sound old, but back in the day, the aim was to out-optimize your competitors. You could have a very similar business and a very similar offer. And if I was consulting with PDW Group, I would say that's become page one for leadership training company in Nottingham, right? It was about out-optimization. The shift is towards differentiating. It's to having a genuinely different product or saying it in a different way that is relatively unique, because that is going to be what the LLMs, as well as your audience, recommends. If I gave that example before of how much context these things have about you, it's giving highly personalized responses to you. If it's got all of that information about you and all of your exact needs, it wants to say, this is the exact solution to that. So it favors niching down. That's what I'm trying to say. The technology favors niching down. And I'm going to try and make that more obvious in a moment. So what I've seen in marketing is people's pipelines stopped performing, and everyone was like, okay, how do we tactically optimize in a different way? And it misses the larger strategic shift. So I want to talk about strategy now before we get into the tactics of it all. Has anyone come across the red ocean versus blue ocean? This is what they teach on like MBA courses. It's a bit like business theory stuff. Who's it? Chan Kim, I think, wrote it from a business school. But this is standard MBA stuff. So in a red ocean, it's red because it's a metaphor for fierce competition. The fighting in the water creates blood in the water, right? I think that's where the metaphor comes from. So for a marketing agency like ours, if we're just another SEO agency, as an example, who cares? If I'm just another solicitor firm, who cares? Nobody cares about that, right? Because there's so many of you in that space, you have to compete with each other, you end up competing on price. The blue ocean thinking, and I actually think Cooper Parry is quite a good example of this, is they differentiate on the level of brand. They try to stand out in their own space. The idea of a blue ocean is to find an uncontested space that's different from your competition, where there's lower levels of competition, because that's where you're going to be able to have higher prices, where you're going to be able to get found. So I want to make that distinction because it actually applies to everything I'm about to say in a moment about how I think you win in terms of marketing strategy in the future. It's not about out-optimizing your competitors, it's about differentiating. So you're looking for blue ocean space where you're not competing with other people. Right? Everyone following me with all of this? Cirque du Soleil is the example that's given in the book of this, actually, because in the 80s, it was apparently becoming increasingly difficult to run circuses, and there was lots of competition, and there were concerns about animal welfare. And what Cirque du Soleil did was go, we're not even going to be a circus anymore. We're going to combine acrobatics and theatre and music and performance. And they created a whole new category, right? The other example that I like to give is like HubSpot. Is anyone familiar with HubSpot? So the basic way, the easy way of marketing that would have missed the trick is to go, oh, we're a CRM company, we're competing with Salesforce, let's try to outrank Salesforce and compete to be the best CRM. HubSpot invented the term inbound marketing, if you've heard the phrase inbound marketing. They invented a whole methodology of how to do marketing, and that was how they then sold in their software. They're not a CRM provider, they're providers of inbound marketing, right? Which is a whole different concept. I'm going to try and make this practical in a moment. I'm starting with conceptual strategic stuff and I'm trying to break it down. Are you still all with me? Right, own your space in the LLMs. I'm going to play this video. The reason I think this is relevant is you probably didn't watch the Google I/O update recently that came out, but they basically signaled a massive shift in how the internet's going to operate. And Google is basically going to go, and from being a search engine, we're not going to use the word search engines in 3 years' time. They're no longer going to be search engines. We're going to call them assistants. They're AI assistants. So you'll essentially, in the future, just be able to get your phone out. You'll be able to speak to Google, and you'll say, can you research all of the best flights to Malaga? Tell me first, and then book it for me. It will just go off and complete the booking. You know, if people want to look at giving to charities, what charities are most relevant to me? Can I make a donation now? They'll speak. The agent will go off and complete it for you. Even in B2B businesses, in terms of researching the best local solicitors and being able to actually make a live inquiry on the website, that will all be done agentically, and it'll be mediated via assistants. So that's basically what Google announced. I'm going to play the video. Hope you find it interesting. It's only a minute. Yeah, and I say if you're like, I'm trying to make it relevant to people, say if like you're a solicitor, right? And in the past, for your marketing, often people create these little widgets, right? These little like tax calculators for their websites and that sort of thing. Now, if you ask a question in Google, this will be being rolled out in the coming months. It's going to say, if you want to say, I'm looking to optimize my tax situation, I'm earning this much money, it will live in the Google screen render and code agentically for you a tax calculator embedded into the screen, do the calculation in front of you, and then go away, right? So all of those efforts that we had as marketers to, well, we're going to build our own calculator on our website, it just all becomes meaningless because people aren't even going through to your website in the same way anymore. In the future, they're going to be just interacting with these assistants on their phones. Right, so the shifts that this is making then. Traffic to your website becomes almost meaningless. Websites have to be built for these agents because it's going to be agents interacting with your website in the future. There will still be users who come to your site, but increasingly the number of people going to your website goes down and the number of agents goes up. It's going to favor companies that are differentiated. So if you're a generalist company, you're going to struggle. It's going to favor being a specialist company. It's going to favor companies who have got a really solid brand and product reputation. Because if it's read the entire internet about you, it actually knows what your customer sentiment is. It knows what people have said on Glassdoor. It knows whether you're winning awards. And it's not what you say about yourself on the website. It's what everybody's saying about you online. It's ingested all of that information. So that's the paradigm shift I'm trying to articulate. So I'm going to give PDW Group as the example, right, of like the top level strategic thing that for PDW is, like I say, back in the day, PDW would be like, okay, rank #1 for leadership training. That's how you grow. Get in Google, get that #1 spot. Problem with that is all of those are paid spots at the top. There's then these AI overviews that come up, which you don't even get a click for. And you have to go right all the way down here to find PDW. They're not even on page 1. Sorry. Now, in the future, not in the future, now, if I was advising PDW Group, I would be saying to them, look, you're not a generalist leadership and sales training company. There's loads of those. What does PDW Group actually do differently? Now, in my view, what you guys do differently is you get people onto this beautiful site, you have actors come along, you actually do live feedback. I've got to give feedback to an actor. You then film it. I then watch that feedback get played back to me. That actually changes my behavior, right? So it's experiential learning. So instead of going, we're a leadership management company, we're going to out-optimize other people, we're going to get to the top of Google, we're going to work out who we are and what we do differently, and we're going to own the term experiential behavioral training, or we're going to own the term practice leadership, and we're going to go out and we're going to become famous for this very specific type of leadership we do that nobody else really does. Now, from an LLM point of view, but also from a general marketing point of view, it's going to love that, because that's a unique concept. right? If you're just writing blogs about what good leadership and development training is, this is what people are doing at the moment, and I know I'm ranting on, I'm hoping this is relatively relevant to all of you. What marketing has been historically is, you write a blog about leadership and management training, but now people are using AI to write their blog about general leadership and management training courses. Why is that? And then, why is that going to then get featured in an LLM? It's just junk content. But if you own a unique idea that's differentiated, that's how you're going to get found. Stay with me, and I'm going to bring it all together. This is about overcoming barriers to growth. Good marketing does two things. If you take anything away from this, just take this away. It's about being easy to remember and about being easy to discover. Being easy to discover, that part of marketing is everything I was talking about, getting found in LLMs, getting found in search. Are you easy to find? But being easy to remember is the thing that ultimately drives growth. And that's about building fame. Now, has anyone seen this before, which is worth knowing about in terms of business growth and marketing? So this is about B2B, and I think most businesses here probably are B2B, but I think it will apply for charities as well. In fact, it will. At any given moment, the majority of your audience who can buy from you are not in market and ready to buy. So say there's a solicitor firm who's sat here watching today. You may not be looking for an agency right now, right? You're probably not. But maybe in 2 years' time you will be. And I want you to remember Hallam if that time ever comes along, right? Now, what marketers tend to do is, there's a 5% who are in market for your services right now. They're looking for leadership and management training right now. And we spend all of our time and energy trying to convert that 5%. And we throw all of our budget trying to convert that 5%. And because of that, it's really competitive. It's really not cost effective. And there's so few people in that market. So what you have to do is reach that 95% who aren't in market right now and get them to remember you. Because what happens is, say, I'm trying to keep it relevant, say you're a solicitor firm and say you do come into market in a couple of years' time and think we need a marketing agency to help us with this. In the B2B space, over 90% of those people decide to buy from people they already knew before they came into market. It's not that you're going into the search engine and going who the best agency is. You're like, oh, I've had a recommendation from Jim Thomas 2 years ago about Hallam and I saw Jake speak. Should we get in touch with them? And they call that your day one list. It's people you want to work with before you've even decided to buy. So if you're waiting until people are in market, you're not going to get on that day one list. So the goal of marketing is to build memorability, is to build fame so that you get on that day one list. So for B2B SMEs, and that's what I'm focusing this on, when we're saying, yeah, sorry. Oh, no, it's fine. It doesn't mean building mass market awareness. Fame isn't mass market awareness. It's awareness around buying points. So again, to give our example, everyone's got pain points. We know that our buyers, their pain point is their pipelines have dried up, right? So what we're trying to do is when your pipeline dries up, remember Hallam. We want to associate our brand with that pain point. And we know there's 3 or 4 different pain points that our brand's associated with. So building fame just means within your category, build awareness around your pain points. Again, having a differentiated point of view. So when I was talking about becoming famous for experiential learning or practice leadership, whatever you guys want to call that for PDW Group, that works for LLMs, but it also works for humans, right? It also works to build fame around your specific category. What we do, this is our marketing approach if you're interested. We own our own community for B2B marketing managers. We invite people into that community. There are hundreds of people that are now in that community. We then go put on events like today where we articulate our proposition essentially. That's basically what I'm doing. We film all of it. We upload that video. That becomes all of our social media content. That goes into YouTube. That gets more and more eyeballs. And it gets fed into the LLMs because it's reading all of the video content. Now, and what I'm doing is I'm trying to articulate our unique point of view. And it's not just going to you as the audience via that camera, it's also going to the wider internet. I'm going to touch on this just because there are quite a few B2B companies in the room. There's a book called How Brands Grow. If you're interested in growth, it's the best book on how brands grow. And they talk about this word called distinctiveness. And distinctiveness this is a great example, I think, in terms of in the B2B tech space, everybody looks the same, everybody sounds the same. They call it the sea of sameness. That means that you're forgettable, instantly forgettable. So what we did with one of our clients, Covert Swarm, is we redesigned it and we made the colors bold, we made it stand out, and instead of being a cybersecurity company that helps with pen testing, what does that even mean? They lead with, you deserve to be hacked, right? And because of that, it pops, it stands out, it's distinctive. And because we've got an attention economy where everyone's scrolling on their phones, you have to be able to hit people with something that's actually going to stand out. So distinctiveness is a key concept in terms of getting remembered and building pipeline. Final thing I'm going to say, and then I'm going to get questions because I know there's a lot of information, especially for a non-marketing audience. Final shift that we're recommending to our clients and that we're building in. Marketers have sold the dream for quite some time that everything is measurable. And we've done that because our job has often been to go to the board and go to the finance director and say, give me £50,000 to invest in marketing and I'm going to get you £500,000 back, 10 times ROI, and here's my reporting metrics, right? But it doesn't work anymore. It's not necessarily true because you can't track how people behave online anymore. That's becoming increasingly difficult. People are now, they call it the dark funnel. B2B decisions are made by like, oh, actually, Jim's recommended Hallam on a WhatsApp message that somebody's read, and I've then gone into an LLM and I've typed and searched something. It can't be tracked in the same way. So the recommendation that we're leading with, and this seems to be working really well, is you connect marketing to revenue and less to leads. So what the effect this has is, in the past, everyone's been like, let's optimize to drive MQLs and traffic. You can actually shift it, and we can talk to you about how you connect it back to your CRM system, and you connect it back to closed won in HubSpot. But the effect it has is the number of leads that you get might go down. This is happening at Hallam. The number of leads we're getting is going down, but the relevancy of those leads and the quality of those leads within your ICP, within your target market, is going up. And because of that, our sales and marketing machine is becoming more efficient and we're winning more work. So you have to connect it to revenue and not to leads. And we're recommending like either stopping or demoting the following metrics, like leads and MQLs as a primary KPI. We're saying probably stop tracking those or at least demoting the importance. Last click attribution, I'm not going to bother describing that to a non-marketing audience. Cost per lead, again, it's almost a meaningless metric in all of this because does it matter if you paid £10 for a lead if it didn't close? That's a waste of money. I'd rather pay £500 for a lead that becomes a £10,000 contract. And then again, organic traffic coming through to your website, that will just continue to go down. So there's no point prioritizing it. And instead, the marketing dashboards that we're building have got two components to them. One is connecting marketing data to revenue. So I'm not going to go into technically how you do this, but we're building these out for clients now. You can use data warehouses to connect your CRM and marketing data together. And basically you can then see what marketing activity is actually driving the revenue into your business. And then you can optimize for that. That's the main shift that we're recommending. And the second is, if we're talking about becoming famous, how famous is your brand within your category? So if it's Rather a Bray or if it's PDW Group, are people actually now searching more for your brand name? Is that sentiment positive? Is your brand becoming gradually more famous over time? Because all the best marketing science research shows that if your brand becomes more famous over time, they call it your share of voice or your share of search. So that's where they look at your competitor set and they look at your name. And if your name is growing, your brand is growing in relation to all of your competitors, 6 months later, your market share follows directly that same growth pattern. So we know if you grow share of search and share of voice and you grow your brand, your business will grow with a 6-month lag behind it. So measuring that is really important. So in summary, I hope I've kept all of you through quite a technical marketing talk. We're moving away from an era of optimization towards differentiation, which means finding your unique point of view. That by repeating that is how you build fame and how you build visibility within AI tools, and also connecting marketing to revenue and measuring your brand sentiment as well. So Did that all make sense? I'm going to pause now and I'm going to see if anyone's got any questions